Well, as I said at the beginning of the Mass, today we celebrate the baptism of the Lord. And in chapels around the world, we also give thanks to God for the birth of Venerable Patrick Peyton, founder of Holy Cross Family Ministries and a Holy Cross priest who touched countless families and souls around the world. In today's gospel, we hear those famous words from God the Father. "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." For me, as I prayed over that, it also echoed to me the gospel account from Luke in the Transfiguration, where it says, "This is my chosen Son, listen to him." My brothers and sisters, every time we read or hear those words, it's a reminder that Jesus is God's beloved Son, and that he is calling to us to listen to him. I also think that it is a wonderful chance to ask ourselves right today, am I listening to Jesus? And each time we hear the gospel, we're also reminded of our own baptism, the origin of our baptism. We recall this transformational moment in our lives when we do so. It is a day when we became a son or daughter of God. It was a day that our souls were sealed with the Holy Spirit, and we received a supernatural grace to live as God created us to be. Not as the world would say, not as even we would say, but as God created us to be. Well, way back in 1909, one day after his birth, on Sunday, January 10th, Patrick Peyton was baptized. He was baptized into the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Patrick, and eventually Father Patrick Peyton, certainly believed that Jesus is the beloved Son of God the Father. And he definitely listened to Jesus, especially at the key moments in his life. But like each of us, at times, he heard his own voice more loudly. But what makes him and all those we venerate in the church, those of heroic virtue and sanctity of life, is that Father Peyton never stopped listening to God. And he would always reset his course, his thoughts, and his words and actions when they didn't correspond to God's will. And when needed, like us, he would humbly go to confession and receive forgiveness from Jesus and the grace of strength to amend his life. As many of you know, as a young man, Patrick didn't gain entrance into the seminary while in Ireland. And so, logically, he thought it was God's plan for him to make a life in the United States of America, to become a husband and a father. I think he even promised to God that all his children, the boys would become priests and the girls would become nuns. No pressure, kids. However, as we know, God spoke to him, and he spoke to him as he cleaned and cared for the Cathedral of St. Peter's in Scranton, Pennsylvania, right here in the United States. God spoke clearly and powerfully as Patrick swept and polished the house of the Lord, with the Eucharistic Lord present in the tabernacle and the baptismal font plainly in sight, reminding him of whom he belonged to and that God's grace was at work in his life. As he filled the holy water fonts and lit the candles, he would remember the waters of baptism and the light of Christ that he received on that Sunday, January 10th. How about us? As we dip our fingers into the holy water fonts, as we gaze upon the light of the altar candles, do we remember our membership in God's family and the light of Christ that we have received? Do we appreciate what we have received in being sealed with the grace of the Holy Spirit that dwells in us? At the end of today's reading from the Acts of the Apostles, Peter describes John the Baptist with these words. He went about doing good and healing those oppressed by the devil, for God was with him. My brothers and sisters, Father Peyton went about doing good in his life, encouraging families to pray together, especially the rosary. For God was with him. May we be inspired by his example and the celebration of the baptism of the Lord to do good, beginning in our families. For like John the Baptist and Father Peyton, God is truly with us.